Hello everyone, welcome to a new video update. Today I want to take a quick look at BTC that hasn't changed much, and also and especially everything related to the altcoins, right? To the old season everyone is expecting. Um, I can feel the impatience. It's obvious, right? It's been quite a long time since everything ran hard for altcoins, pretty much like 7 months. By the way, this is a good reminder of how important it is to take profit instead of holding into a one exceptional cycle move in which I make tremendous gains and I just sell right at the top and then just compound in the next bear market, and I will be a millionaire in a couple of cycles. I mean, that's the mentality that many bring to the market, and then they realize it's not that way. It's about compounding, being in peace with yourself by leaving money on the table, and controlling, having a plan. Because the idea of having a plan is not only to maximize your returns, is to not lose control and not lose sight of what's going on when the emotions are really popping up, right? Because you will go through that if you don't have a plan. You decide to sell, and then you see the market keeps rising. You will feel FOMO again. You might find any kind of justification to go back into the market because it was early. You're not really following any plan. You don't really know why you sold in the first place, mostly because you were afraid, PTSD, and you thought, okay, but this is enough. But in reality, you want more, because who doesn't want more? So you go back in, and that's the recipe to round tripping it all. So establish a pattern, a plan, something to act on, and don't look back. Okay, you have to be able, it's very hard to do, you have to be able to see the market go further than you expected or lower than you expected, and it's okay. It's about compounding. So far BTC is still in this range. We've been monitoring for a long time, even with this war panic, that I think it's not a coincidence that it ended up closing within this range, above the 100 mark, with just a double tap of the 100-day EMA. Now we are looking for a higher low, something I've been saying, and even though people are getting impatient here, holding 16.5, it's great, because it's like the upper range, the support for this upper range. The same way here, the support for this upper range was like 99, 98k, which is the area we tapped as support now, right? So everything's good. Could we tap the daily, which is around 6? Yeah, some weeks, something like that. I mean, the longer it takes, the more likely it is we tap this, all within this bull flag. The fact that this is a bull flag doesn't mean it has to constantly revisit both extremes, before both ends, before breaking out, right? It's about horizontal MA, so we can just bounce here, print a higher low, and the next time we break this, we might get rejected again, but all-time high, come back, retest the trend line, and off we go. Anyway, diagonals are not my best or my preferred method, but they can tell you and they can show you the path. I remember drawing back here this kind of trend line that was useful, because we saw that BTC was constantly rejecting in the downtrend, and until it broke and pretty much held it, we weren't confirmed. It wasn't confirmed that we were back. But you don't need a trend line. That's more like a confluence point, because we were reclaiming and coiling above the for the first time since this drop, about the 20 MA, the launchpad, the famous launchpad that I talked about. And it's interesting to see that I've mentioned several times that this vertical accumulation happened in October 23. I said to study that for a reason. And if we go back to October 23, we saw this vertical accumulation until the inevitable correction came, and it was down to the 100. The difference here is all this move was pretty much with no divergences inside. Right? Perhaps a small, there was a small stochastic RSI divergence here, but no big divergences. However, here in October, we started printing several divergences on the daily. That's why it's not that easy. You can see it keeps climbing. Even after the correction, the price was still higher than the initial divergences. So it's not an insta sell or insta buy kind of price action. Again, it's confluence. And here, after the inevitable correction, we retested the 100-day EMA again. And then we'll resume the uptrend to the top in March, which, by the way, ended a 6-month run in a very overheated fashion, 87 on the weekly. Right? You can see how here RSI we lost the MA on the weekly, but was pretty much like a retest, even front running the 20. Right? And horizontally speaking, it was pretty much turning this area into support, right? This resistance. Sorry, as previous support, retesting as support again. The thing is, I want to show you why data. I focus on data because there's so much noise. You have been seeing that for months and weeks. So for the whole cycle, if you've been here, this whole cycle, it's tremendous. That's why the feeling of the wall of worry cycle all the time, because every time there's been some push or some correction, it's been always around some potential bad news, right? They don't eventually materialize and the cycle continues. But if you pay attention to the high time frame structure, we have analyzed that many times. It was all good. It was all about reclaiming key levels. So what I see here is a clear example, an effect of short-term trading and manipulation with data. How many times, if you were here back in 2023, how many times did people say that this push from October was because of the approval of the ETFs? So people were front running, right? You might think that that's a strong narrative. It makes sense. Everyone believes it, so it must be true. They keep ignoring that these who push. By the way, here in the 8-month correction, ETFs were already here. So why did we have this if ETFs are so strong? You can see that how narratives break easily if you just try if you make the right questions, right? So all this push, in my opinion, was caused by this boring price action that no one wants to be in, but it is mandatory or necessary for this. This was from March 23 to October 23. All this chop, pretty much toying with EMAs, reclaiming, faking people out, holding previous resistance as support twice, not losing it. This is a reaccumulation range. Why do I say reaccumulation? Because it was after the bear market bottom. We are back. We confirm this is a new bull market, and now we hold. Reaccumulate, regain strength, and then we push. Do the same thing and make higher highs and higher lows in the whole cycle, right? So this is the date where the BlackRock ETF launched, January 11th. Let's see what the market did back then. Right to the date. We can see that, right? It was already showing weakness. We saw that. And it spiked and topped here. All this time, all the gurus, all the crypto experts were talking about how it was obvious, it was a front runner. Even ETFs were the top of the cycle. How in the world can you say this is the top of the cycle when we have just pretty much started a bull market? We have been through a bear market for a whole year. And now you say this is the top, which, by the way, it's not a random area. It's the dead cat bounce top in 2022 after the cycle top in 2021, dead cat bounce, and fake out above the EMAs to make people, this is why correction in a bull market make people believe it's over, and pushes here in bear market, they make you believe these fake outs, they make you believe people we are back. But if you've been after such a strong bull market, you don't correct and be back in just a couple of months. Come on. It's just your desire to want more and more and more. And now we have the opposite. We've been so hungry for so long that we think that food will never come. So every correction makes you think it's over, that is weakness instead of reaccumulation and gaining strength. Right? You don't see weakness, and when I say you again, remember it's people in general, what I mean. They don't see weakness here, but they see weakness now. When this is a clear downtrend, and now we have a clear uptrend. So we picked here, same day ETFs popped, they were launched, and we corrected into the 100 EMA, 20% drop. It was over. I remember it perfectly. It was over. The war effects, the inflation, how the war was, the Ukraine-Russia war was going to extend in time. Oil was going to rip, and inflation would be out of control. More hikes and in the rates by the Fed. Everything was terrible, and that's how cycles stop, right? This was the top, was just 12-13 days later. And from this cycle top that many people said, to the run to 73 and new all-time highs, all you needed was not even 2 months. Right? And this is the top of BTC, and all this chop, many altcoins stopped later. Right? It was so over. It was so over here. This is total 3. So over that people missed all this. And they completely ignored the reaccumulation. You can see total 3 didn't even have the initial spike for as BTC did. It's a whole accumulation from 2022 to 2023, a year and a half, something like that. This explosion was because BTC broke previous level, which is this 48k, and we pushed hard together with BTC, and I'm gonna remove this for a second, BTC dominance also chopping in between, right? All this, that's why I say we don't really need BTC dropping really hard to have some run, right? We need BTC pushing, breaking previous levels, right? And BTC dominance chopping. It's pretty much chopping, ranging, not making higher highs, right? And then when the top was in, BTC dominance continued its uptrend pretty much, right? But in all this chop, this drop from 54, 52, back to 55, down to 51, 3-4% kind of moves, altcoins really exploded, right? And what I see now is BTC is still holding key levels while people are being impatient, in my opinion, but to each their own. And there's nothing broken. However, does this mean we're going to have an alt season next? I still don't think so. And I explained several times why. One of the main reasons is because Ethereum BTC is said to be one of the most important charts for altcoins to outperform, or mostly because it's a sign that altcoins are stronger than BTC. That's it, not because it's mandatory. I mean, there might be different explanations, but what I see, if this is a key chart, this is the bottom area we anticipated, and it got rejected perfectly by the 20, something expected. It did last cycle, and it's not expected because it did last cycle. It's expected because after such a huge, tremendous downtrend, the first time you test a high time frame EMA, it's going to be rejected. That's normal, right? If it had overshot here, could have been rejected here and then retested, but it would have been more brutal for both sides, right? And all I see is RSI is bouncing again from very oversold levels. The structure is pretty much the same. Does it mean it has to repeat the same kind of stretch? It doesn't have to. This, so you can see the structure is different. This is just a guidance, and this is just to see. This is not weakness. This is not unusual. In fact, if we retrace, if Ethereum retraces because BTC starts pushing again, I would like this area to hold as a higher low. And then we can attack and start reclaiming the MAs. We can see that last cycle here in December, right, was the last drop on a big fake out. And then it's when the alt season started, right here. So you don't need this last part. You just need Ethereum to be around above the MA, possibly, right? But you have to be ready, because here it looked like it was above, holding, but it still took another fake out drop to end, hold the hopes and wishes from people. You remember that I posted all the tweets around here that there was no alt season this cycle. It was all over. Right? That's the effect of this kind of drops, because people don't follow a plan. They just follow their emotions, and if it's a green candle, then good, it's all good. And if it's a red candle, it's all over. And I'm sorry, but I still read many people trying to look daily for any kind of alpha that just tells them that it's gonna be all right, and it's gonna be all right very soon. I'm sorry, again, this is not how markets work. You have to bet on a move, but then you have to leave the market, decide when it's gonna do it, because even if you don't want the market to act that way, it will act that way. So all you have to do is be patient, capture the move, exit, wait for the next move. Unless you are a seasoned trader and you want to trade daily, and even then, you might miss great moves, great sudden moves, because when BTC dominance decides to drop, it decides to drop. Sometimes it's not easy to predict. For example, here in Q4, we have these potential, these starting various divergences here. This job confused many people, right? I'm not saying it was obvious, because it wasn't. All I could say is, okay, we are starting to build some divergences, but this sudden drop crossing all the daily MAs is not something you can predict. Because all I saw here was, okay, the MAs are still holding. We haven't lost the 50 daily strength, but at the same time, this could be weakness, right? Could be, but we don't know. And then all of a sudden we have from November to December a huge fake out here, and a huge drop down to very oversold levels on the daily. Doesn't mean when we reach oversold levels on the daily, that's it. No, because if you go to the previous cycle, you can see how tremendous it was, and how long we stayed in these oversold levels from April to pretty much mid-May, right? Yes, it could be the scale out kind of area, but you can see how from 60% to 40%, a 20% drop in pretty much less than 2 months. You can't predict that. You can try to anticipate it, to read it, once you see that it loses the 200-day moving average. But it was also being lost here, although from very oversold levels it started building a bullish divergence. So this perhaps was a sign that it wasn't over for BTC dominance, and this is the last push in which people really lost their minds, right? Pretty much retesting this previous top in September. And then all of a sudden we completely roll over. So first of all, from a daily perspective, what we have is, I pointed out this daily divergence. It eventually played out and broke the EMA, and I said, but how low? For now, just a retest of the 20. So this means BTC dominance is still very strong in all this chop, even the biggest one here in May. That made people believe it was all ready. I thought that everything was shaping, but again, high time frame, I don't know how long it will take, and I maintain my idea. I posted buckle up, and I still maintain that idea. I don't care if it chops in between, right? So it was just a retest of the 100. Then the 50, the 20, the 50, the 20, the 20. Showing weakness, we'll see. If it eventually pushes back up, makes another extension of this divergence, and then we finally roll over. We don't know. But again, I want BTC to run. We all want BTC to run. We need BTC to break previous resistance, high time frame resistance, in this case, previous all-time high, so entering in price discovery. We need that. We want that. And then you add BTC in price discovery with BTC dominance dropping, and then you have the combination for a huge push for altcoins. But until then, I think it's not healthy to be expecting an all season every week. BTC dominance is still very strong. We go to the 4-hour even. For the short term, we can see that for now, it broke several moving averages. Here, it even lost the 200, but then bounced back. What could we see that could reinforce the idea of that daily bearish divergence? We need to see rejection here. And then perhaps we start thinking about, okay, this could be something, but then we need to lose the 200 for the 4-hour 200. And then fight again the boss, the Fibonacci boss. So you can see there are many levels in the short term to break, right? The daily, you know, at least breaking the moving averages. I'm going below 64. If we go below 64, perhaps there's a chance that this is a good run for altcoins. But again, I posted when we were around here that 61.60 was the lowest I could see for the weekly cycle in which altcoins push. That was the lowest, and the higher we are now, the harder it is for me to see this kind of area next. I need to see some kind of breakdown first, but again, we saw this. The only sign we had was this divergence, so I don't know if this could be it. You could argue that this was very far to measure it, but this second impulse made another one and eventually broke the MA, but we have seen that many times just chop, right? So we still have to wait. There's nothing, I cannot read or try to force any kind of interpretation here to tell you it's gonna be all right, because that's what you were to hear. This is not what we do here. In fact, we can see that here in the weekly we have another bearish divergence. I said there was a bearish divergence in 4-hour, 1 day and 1 week charts, but this kind of bounce is making it bounce from the EMA, from the moving average. We had a fake out here in May. Everybody was super excited on what did BTC dominance did, just a retest of the 20. Here in the Q4 round, it was just a fake out below the 50. Remember how BTC in all these corrections, right, that we have seen in all these cycle, I'm gonna remove all the drawings. We can see how to maintain the bullish trend, all it did was retesting the 50, 50, 50, right? In summer, here in April. So retesting the 50 in the weekly means a strong uptrend continues, right? And here, the drop for BTC dominance, the drop here in Q4, this was a fake out, right? But the 50 held, and we are still far from that. And from a weekly perspective, we can see the last cycle started toying around with the EMAs, printing lower highs. This was some kind of very telling, like the first signs of potential weakness for BTC dominance. But again, this was 2020, mid 2020 was made. Then we had this drop, this final impulse that trapped many people, and it was just like a retest of the previous high, and then we completely roll over down below the MA, right? Here it tried to fight the MAs, but you can see it couldn't, right? It was rejected all the time. It was January, February, March. This was a sign that perhaps again it has still room to fall, because it was unable to reclaim them for quite some time, right? Some people might say this is a strength because it's accumulating below the MA. I don't see a strength when you can't break a key level for such a long time. And again, below the MA, what's the strength? Below the MA is bearish territory. Where's the strength here? Right? You can have fake outs. We've seen that many times. But when you stay for so long below the MA, it feels like a matter of time before you drop. How big the drop, no one knows. So stop following those who say what's going to happen just because of one data point. I'm just trying to compare this in terms of a reaction to key levels, which are the ones that I have drawn here. I mean, this support here is not random. It's a key level here. It was resistance here and then support here in an uptrend. This is no random level that I have chosen. It's just historical levels. So we don't know how far it's going to drop, but we can see that this drop on the monthly chart meant BTC losing the MA. The first impulse was also below the MA, right? And then this is the old season. Look at the place where it was lost. January 1st, after this huge drop when everyone was already giving up. You lose the MA, and then you have the old season, right? So here in Q4 we had the fake out, but it was still holding and still work to do for that old season. Can we have a big run from here to the MA like we did in Q4? Of course, you can play in between. You can print 4, 3, 5x in between. But it's a huge old season, prolonged period. That's an old season. Old season is not just 2-3 weeks. It's about a few months where people feel so comfortable that that's the new normal, right? Seeing altcoins popping off, new projects you didn't know about, printing 5, 10, 20x, talking about the future, how serious the team is, blah, 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 all that. You create a tremendous, comfortable period of time. You need a long time for people to become comfortable, especially after such a painful run for BTC dominance and a painful run for altcoin holders. However, it's all that pain and expectations broken and all that is just emotional, because chart-wise, I said it many, many times, altcoins were worse, way worse here than they are here. Very close to the all-time high, super far from all-time high at bear market levels. Imagine if we were now here around these levels, right, like we were here, I would argue that yes, I would agree with you. We are in a painful market for altcoins. But you have some examples, like XRP was 50 cents for the whole year, and now it's around $2, and people are scared. Could it drop below $2? Are we serious here? We have normalized the $2 like the new 50 cents. And it's a 4x from November levels, all within a deep correction for 7 months. How we lost our minds? It's just perhaps that your bags are not performing well yet, and they might outperform in just a few weeks. That's something we have seen many times, especially in the last cycle, right? For example, if I open, let's say, Veracity, which is something that I traded once. By the way, I posted here, this area had to be reclaimed because Veracity like to play these kind of explosive moves to just fake people out. And what did happen? Yeah, this was a fake out, clear rejection here, and then a new lower low. I said this project didn't look good, and I said it for a reason. But the thing is, you have this, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, perhaps because BTC dominance allow that, you can see here, BTC dominance dropped so hard that every freaking altcoin runs. Does it mean you have to play this? Does it mean this is the best bet? No, you're betting on a very, very crazy scenario as your main bet. And to me, that's madness, right? To me, holding this so bad because you think there's so upside potential. Well, when you hit the floor and you aim for the sky, of course the upside potential is great, but the thing is, can you even fly, right? Because yeah, the upside potential is there, but perhaps it's there because you don't have strength to even try, right? So this is not strength at all. It doesn't mean, again, when everything runs, that every coin runs. There's a narrative that's been going on for the whole cycle pretty much about altcoins not having a real alt season this cycle, right? Because apparently, let me go back to BTC dominance for a second. So there's not going to be a proper alt season as we know. It's just specific sectors, right? So specific coins popping here and there. And there are too many coins that there can't be an alt season. Let me tell you something. This is how I see it. I don't know the future, but that's the kind of thought process of a person who needs everything to be super simple to be digestible. Too many coins would require too much money. It's impossible. That's all they do. But let me just tell you this. Isn't the market way bigger than it was before? If you open the USDT market cap, right? This was the old season, right? The moment the old season started, market cap 180 billion, something like that. Market cap now, what can we say? Sorry, I'm mixing here. Okay, I got confused. 15 billion, yeah, 20 billion when the old season started. Now 157 billion. Almost like a 10x the market cap. But we think it's impossible. BTC above 100k. Here 60k. And it's not over for BTC. That's what I believe. And we think there's not enough money really for a big old season. Perhaps you think there's no old season this cycle, but all I see is, yes, there's no old season yet. I mean, the possibility is still there because all we've seen is BTC dominance chopping. And when it chops for just a short time, it is obvious that not every coin is going to run. Perhaps some hyped coins, real world assets, memes here, memes that, ETF related coins, payment stable coins, whatever. It's obvious. Those are the plays that the big boys squeeze in between. But again, why do we think it's not gonna happen? The same thing was said here because it was up only for BTC dominance apparently. But the markets are not that simple. And I believe market makers know how to manipulate people, how to make them think what they want them to think, right? Let me open Ethereum USD for a second. I'm gonna remove all this. And I'm gonna open the daily chart. And this is the deviation trap that I posted. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to show. By the way, it's again trying to reclaim the MAs with this fake out to 2.8 and this retest of the support area at 2.1, something we have discussed a lot. And it's a 24% kind of area, an initial input of 16. I mean, it's great for big pockets and for people who know what they're doing. You can see this range, right? It's being respected. And I said, by the way, that it looked like I didn't really look like distribution because it was losing strength while price looked like distribution. This is the daily, right? Doesn't mean cycle distribution. And then we had this fake impulse into 2.8 making people think we are back. And I said, okay, we are leaving averages behind, but then it got rejected at a new high time frame resistance level. Of course, it's going to reject at first. And then we had a fake below. And it seems like indeed it was distribution very well executed, right? And then we are back pretty much at the same area. Liquidate here, and then we resume our business. Again, reclaiming the 200. We are pretty much at the same place we were before all this. On early June. Same freaking place. And then, let me tell you something. This is the Ethereum ETF flow. And I've been tracking, far as I investors, all the reports. There were some changes from the inflows, right? We can see here, this is the total inflows, right? From inception in summer 24, we had the push here until pretty much February, and the drop as the market dropped as well until bottom April, right? So from mid-February, something like this, to the bottom of April until here, more or less, right? So what I see is why, if Ethereum inflows are pushing higher, despite this correction is still making higher highs and higher lows, why is Ethereum printing a lower high and for now, a lower low and for now a lower high? Right when all the inflows are growing, right when we are about to the SEC is about to pass the ETF staking and all the Ethereum staking, all the altcoins ETFs. Now, all of a sudden, Ethereum that had been following BTC, I'm gonna change to the weekly now because I think it's clearer. The picture is clearer. Switch the colors for a second. Here we go. We can see how BTC and Ethereum have decoupled, right? Until then, they were following pretty much each other, but BTC made a higher low and then a higher high, and Ethereum lower low and potentially now a lower high. Right when the inflows are growing, right when we have the discussion about the ETF, it's a matter of time. I think the deadline is October, if I'm not wrong, for some of them, for many of them, for Solana and all that stuff. Don't you think that it's suspicious that everyone says the Ethereum is dead this cycle? It's being a heavy underperformer, and it got rejected pretty much of previous all-time high here, together with BTC. Sorry, when BTC Enterprise Discovery and made new all-time high, Ethereum couldn't break. Very similar to the altcoin charts, by the way. In fact, if I compare it to Total 3 has done way better. Right, this is Total 3 now. Total 3 has made higher low, and for now it's in this compression pattern by making higher lows all the way up. Unlike Ethereum, right, which is still making the apparently a bearish development, but you can see how this kind of moves. If you think this is organic, I mean, it's pretty much a mirror, but I think it's at least interesting to see how everything looks weak when it's about to run, when all the development around Ethereum and altcoins are positive. What's going on? Remember the BTC trap we had here in with the ETF launch, right? Make them believe it's over. Push the price to make them believe it's all from running and it's over here, to trap them, and then, oh, yes, it's the obvious. If you launch an ETF, it's going to be successful. You're going to attract money because that's your fucking business, of course. Do we really think big boys are going to launch a product into a bear market, into a cycle top? No. You publish advertisements like fortune favors the brave on TV for freaking retail to buy the top, like I posted in my Patreon post. It was on October 28th, right at the freaking top. October 28th. What's that wrong here? Think about that. But then you offer your clients here the ETS money because you say, okay, it's the future. and then they buy it here, and the price keeps going up. What do you think about altcoins? What do you think they could do? If I open others, I posted that this could be the final shakeout compared to Q4, but for now it's being rejected. Why? I said it many times, because we need, sorry, we need, I want to move this, okay. We need BTC, this is the previous all-time high, we need to break BTC breaking all-time high and pushing, and then you add BTC dominance dropping as well. So you have BTC pushing breaking all-time high and BTC dominance chopping, or, but again, we need, it's mandatory for BTC to push. It hasn't pushed yet, of course. The altcoin charts, all they can do is making higher lows and getting ready, because they depend on the big boy. So again, people decoupling BTC from altcoins just because they want only their altcoins to run, it's delusional. Come on, wake up. You can't have people who say you're gonna have a bear market for BTC but a bull market for altcoins. What are you smoking? Haven't you seen by now that BTC moves the market and everything gravitates around it? I don't care how strong your project is. It did, and it dropped like 95% the bear market because BTC did. Period. I don't care how hard you think the company is working or whatever. They might be selling on you, dumping on you, of course. But the thing is, it can't really run if BTC doesn't break all-time high. I mean, previous resistance, in this case, all-time high and price discovery. We need that. In January, it was about breaking the previous year dead cat bounce here in 2022. Look how others retraced but held the MAs. And when BTC decided to push, they kept pushing until the top. Now we're still below the MAs, and this is the daily. Right? You can have this, of course you can have this, without being below just because BTC dominance says it's go time, and BTC also says it's go time, but I would rather see others and Total 3 holding above the MAs for some time, because that would mean a stronger base for altcoins here. It was way below. It was just a month and a half, something like that, not even that. Just a month running. They were below. They were even printing lower lows. But BTC and BTC dominance said, okay, it's time to go. Okay, up we go. But there was no stronger base. Yes, higher lows, but I would like to see above the MA for quite some time. You might think this is boring, but this is super strong. What did we do here? We were below, chopping after this downturn. We didn't have time to fully reclaim and build the base. And what did we do? Strong push, and the next time we tried to reclaim, we started losing it all. There was no base, so when you come back down, there is no base. And now we are pretty much doing the same. If this is a valid theory, would I prefer a freaking boring summer but reclaiming everything for a couple of months just to fully send in Q4, perhaps into Q1? Yes, bring it on, because I will make way more money in the end. Remember, this is the daily again. Everything was over here. But all the others did was just climb above these 2-3 MA daily MAs all the time until they eventually were lost. You buy and you wait until they break. It's a tremendous play. Yes, many fluctuations, much volatility in between. But we want the final result, right? The good outcome, not the process in between. You can see here in 2017, holding for quite some time, holding before double accumulation area or support area, and then we fly. Pretty much same here, all the time testing the 20, right? Here, 2023, July to August, to October, holding the 20. And now here, I want to remove all this for a second. Some are pretty much holding the 20, the weekly, that was the strongest base, but not the daily, remember. And now we are retesting just, as I said, this could be the double bottom you wish you would have bought when we are pushing high. And remember, please remember again, I will say it so many times because I know I have new followers coming from YouTube, so they don't follow me on Twitter. And we are very, very, very close to all-time high. But still, 87%. On the time when BTC was still chopping around, BTC dominance didn't really push. We were around here. It was like 200%, even lower from here. So again, BTC dominance is still pushing, right? Remember, until it dropped, it was really, really below a 300% move, kind of move. And we are just like 80 something. 40, 45 something for total 3, while BTC dominance is not dropping. Again, I see altcoins are really strong. I see the ETFs are coming sooner or later. I see the market is waiting for potential cuts or not. What if, would you be ready? Ask yourself if you would be ready for something like this. Let me remove this for a second. I'm not saying it has to happen, but this is the daily chart, right? Would you be ready for a constant chop here until fully resets into the FOMC meeting? Would you be ready for that? Then it could be seen as a huge base, right? A huge base above all the EMAs. We could see this like a 2 months range for popping off into Q4. I know you wouldn't be ready because you have been expecting the altcoin push for quite some time, and I understand that. But again, you can't force emotions and desire and wishes into the market, because that's even if it works for some time, it's just a coincidence. That way you will set yourself some traps when everything moves, because you will, the same way you're trying to look for any kind of bias indicator or something that tells you, yes, it's go time, the same way you will do the same thing at the top by convincing yourself that's still way more room to go. I saw that in 2021. Everyone was pulling charts that miraculously were pointing into 100k, 150, 200k non-stop, right? So be careful with that. The same way you should be careful now with your emotions. It's exhausting, I know, but we know what all seasons, how they look, right? Again, let me just give you an example of how boring everything looks until then people chase, right? Because I'm gonna remove these EMAs and show you RSI. This was Pepe, right? When everything was running, when BTC was going to the, this is December, blah, blah, blah. And we can see here, now, when everything looked boring for this coin and just a meme that does nothing from pretty much June to January, ranging in this, now you could say accumulation range, right? But back then, for people, it was dead. And all of a sudden, I'm not saying every time it crosses, it has to be powerful, but it's something that is required, or at least it always happens before big moves. And all of a sudden, here in January, this is what Pepe did, right? A 10x in just a month and a half. And you might think, okay, that's an old season, right? BTC dominance dropped from 54 to 52. Another push. So again, you have to be ready. You don't know when things will start moving. Accumulation ranges might be seen as boring, as dead, but you need a bullish structure. If you don't make higher highs, at least you don't make higher lows, and that becomes a range. For now, it's a higher low here. Sorry, you don't make a lower low. You make a higher low, and this accumulation RSI rising, full reset makes this stronger, and we have all the ingredients to suddenly push. What looked like boring price action, here it was the future. We had another impulse, making a perfect variance divergence to exit. This is wonderful. Just pray for this to happen. 90 RSI, and the second impulse into a variance divergence. That's wonderful, right? And again, now making high highs and high lows. You might think this is boring, this is dead. Wait until it breaks all-time high, and it's all back. It's all about Pepe again. So you just have to wait and position yourself. You want this, but you don't want to go through this. And everyone who buys here, man, I should have bought this. When they saw that, and when the accumulation, yes, always in hindsight. But before you don't want to position here because it's too boring. Why isn't it moving? Again, all those questions just come from emotions. Have a plan. Wait for it, right? If you want to position yourself early and to make the tremendous gains we saw last cycle, let me remove all this for a second. Everyone says, man, I wish I was here in 2020. Insane returns. What have you do you think you really you would have endured all this pain, all this time, all this COVID crash, all this? Because people were desperate here. Yes, you want this, but go through this first, right? Because all I see, and I said it many, many times, is total 3, perfectly holding and reclaiming key levels. Very organized structure, something that big boys make. You want this kind of, let's say, retail market. It's not like retail, but you understand what I mean. These explosive moves that it's like casino kind of moves for people, for the average people, the average person. And then you have the kind of a structured bull market. This is boring, this is big pockets, but it is easy to read. It is easier to read it, seriously. That's why I said here, okay, we are turning 2024's highs into support. What's wrong about this? We're turning resistance into support, recovering previous support. What's wrong about this? Do you think what I see here is, oh boy, the time we attack this, perhaps we will really break it. And this is another sign that we are still far from an alt season, because alt season is normally into price discovery, normally. So perhaps the next impulse brings us here, breaks or gets rejected but make a new higher low, or we just accumulate for longer here, and when we break we don't look back. But again, I don't see anything wrong here. We just have to wait. That's how it is. All this job is designed to make you take bad decisions, and that's how you learn. And then when you go through all that pain because you made a bad decision triggered by a rush and impatience, you will lose months, perhaps a year, being underwater, not only not gaining much money, but also losing money. And you will really regret it when you had all this data in front of you, and then you will start paying attention to data because you have been through that. And perhaps you don't feel the pain now because this is your first cycle, you haven't really lost yet. It's just more about being bored or tired of waiting. But perhaps you need that kind of wake-up call that is really losing money, and then asking yourself, what should I do now? Should I stay? Should I just quit and go back to my average life? What if you just follow a plan and let it all play out? If you want to play the riskiest assets that can be, which is not only crypto, but also altcoins, and especially small caps, you have to be ready to endure this. There's a dissonance between what I want or it requires, and me accepting, it requires a lot of emotional control. The riskier the asset, the more emotional control you should have. But it's right the opposite. So again, wait until data says otherwise, but to me, this is all good, a matter of time. So until everything gets sent and BTC opens, breaks all-time high and gets into price discovery, until then, I hope you take care. You just relax, rest, because when everything starts sending, trust me, it's not gonna be that easy. So until then, take care, see ya.